Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here Nationwide at 5. I'm Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Siobhan Campbell.
Good afternoon, Mr. Campbell.
Good afternoon, Sir Hughes.
How are you?
I'm quite well.
Good. Well, in our cover story this afternoon, the People's National Party, the opposition party, concluded its 86th annual conference at the National Arena on Sunday. The conference had several featured speakers, but the one that has sparked the most controversy is the appearance on the stage by popular dancehall artist Vybz Kartel. Yes, he took to the stage to deafening applause with his attorney, Isat Buchanan.
Kartel was recently freed after being convicted for the 2011 murder of Clive Lizard Williams. After spending approximately 13 years behind bars, Kartel's conviction was overturned by the UK-based Privy Council, which found the original trial tainted by jury tampering.
The conference was also attended by Chief of the Accompong Maroons, Richard Currie, and self-styled entertainer Ellie Lewis. Beg your pardon. During his address, PNP President Mark Golding vowed, among other things, to amend the law to expedite the release of reports from the Integrity Commission if his party were to form the next government.
The country is set to see a report concerning investigations into Prime Minister Andrew Holness' statutory declarations. It was submitted to Gordon House on Thursday, September 5. That's 2 weeks before Parliament was set to officially resume tomorrow, September 17. Nationwide News has reported aspects of that report, and Mr. Golding has denounced the leaks as unacceptable.
Now we have a second Integrity Commission report on the Prime Minister, sent to Parliament but not yet tabled for the public to see, with little bits of it being selectively leaked to JLP allied media houses. We will put a stop to such shenanigans. We will change the law so that all Integrity Commission reports must be published on Parliament's website within a short time, perhaps 24 hours of being sent to Parliament, so all Jamaicans can read those reports.
Golding also criticized, once again, Prime Minister Holness for not disclosing the identities of the 8 parliamentarians said to be under investigation for illicit enrichment.
The failure to disclose the identity of the so-called illicit 8 MPs who are under investigation by the Integrity Commission remains a festering sore, only made worse by the Prime Minister's gag order on his cabinet ministers and MPs speaking publicly on these matters. Comrades, I had to hurry up and say that a second time, because before we reach and finish here today, maybe it will move from 8 to 12, the way how the number of labor rights illicits seems to multiply like gremlins.
In the meantime, Mr. Golding says his government will implement the Porsche initiative when his party is next in government. He says the program promises to focus on infrastructure development and poverty alleviation in line with the vision and mission of Mrs. Simpson Miller.
In celebration of our first female Prime Minister, we will bring forth the Porsche Initiative, the program for orderly renewal and transformation of infrastructure in all areas, the Porsche Initiative.
Mark Golding. Meanwhile, the opposition spokesman on finance, Julian Robinson, said the first priority for the next PNP administration would be to improve infrastructure, create better paying jobs, and strengthen local businesses.
Our mission is to transform this economy. And when we form the next government, our first priority will be growth. And not just any growth, but a deliberate, inclusive, and sustainable expansion that reaches every corner of Jamaica. Growth that transforms our economy by moving beyond low-wage jobs to high-value industries, fostering innovation and driving value-added exports. This means creating better-paying jobs, improving infrastructure, and empowering local businesses to compete on the global stage.
Julian Robinson, the opposition spokesman on finance. Well, we're going to get a perspective now on what exactly the PNP achieved over the weekend at its 86th annual conference from public commentator and founder and executive director of Jamaican Association for Debating and Empowerment, JADE Limited, Germaine Barrett. Good afternoon, Mr. Barrett.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hughes. Good afternoon, Siobhan. Good afternoon to your listeners.
First question, what did the PNP achieve over the weekend?
Well, it achieved what is going on now. We're having a conversation about issues relating to, their policies, what transpired during the conference. It is an objective of political parties to always remain relevant in the media, and this is a part of what they've achieved. I think, to their credit, they've achieved a degree of open conversation about that which they plan to achieve were they to succeed at the polls for the general elections. And of course, intermingled with all of that has been a fair amount of controversy surrounding the appearance of L.A. Lewis, Vybz Kartel, the Maroon chief, and so forth. So all in all, people are talking, and talking is good.
And in that regard, the controversy generated by the appearance, especially of Mr. Palmer, isn't that distracting from the core, as the General Secretary said, the centerpiece of the conference, the speech by its leader, Mark Golding? Isn't that distracting from that?
Well, Cliff, a conference, a political conference, is first and foremost a conversation with the base. It's about exciting the base. It's about getting them enthusiastic and riled up. And I think certainly bringing Vybz Kartel on is a part of that whole calculus. I think the party would have really assessed and considered the extent to which there's going to be fallout, and we have determined through data. No, the General Secretary is data-driven, so he may have gathered data to inform the view that says, there's going to be a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, and we saw it there at the conference, the way the people reacted. It was certainly a generally positive thing for them in terms of, I would contend, measured by political expediency. But I think, objectively speaking, from my vantage point, certainly, it was a bad call. It was a bad call because certainly I really do believe that as a society, we have to be serious about sort of fashioning the country into order and decency. And certainly Vybz Kartel is an embodiment of a lot of what is wrong with Jamaica. The way we talk about women, the way we talk about violence in the society as though it's just casual conversation, nothing to be alarmed about. The way we advocate for things that are really degrading the social fabric of the society. We can't, on one hand, be sort of urging the society to come to order and decency and civility, and at the same time be seeming to be endorsing somebody who embodies those kinds of attributes. I think it's a mixed signal, and it is bad.
But you said it's a bad call, but at the same time, you seem to be suggesting that the General Secretary, a data-driven man, would have done the calculation, and that it may, at the end of the day, redound to their benefit. Where are you? I'm not confusing me.
And I understand the challenge. No, so I'll explain. I think a political party vying for leadership must pander to more than just the masses. It is about helping people to understand what is good for the country at large, even if it is that people en masse believe that, they want the riri and the tete and the noise and the hype, right? Mm-hmm. If it is that you're a leader, leadership demands that you guide people and you funnel people in the right direction. And so when it is that a political party is simply testing the pulse of the people and determining that the people have an appetite for this kind of display, and then give them what they want, I don't think that is manifestation of leadership at all.
But certainly, Mr. Barrett, is this a failure of not necessarily the political director, but the electorate on a whole, when the General Secretary can essentially make the calculation that the people who will be upset by the presence of someone such as Mr. Palmer will be far outweighed by the individuals who will be electrified and be brought on board into the fold of the People's National Party by his presence?
It is. It is a failure, I would contend, of both sides. It's a failure of the political elite within the country and those, intelligentsia and elsewhere. The business class, people who are at the helm of fashioning, opinions within the society, and the recipients of that kind of culture and context at large, the people. I think it's a failure on both sides, and I think I really long for the day when leaders can stand up in this country and say no to people whose imagery is consistent with the abuse of women. And I mean, just fairly recently he came out of jail and was in a podcast where he was heard spewing abusive language to his supposed fiancée. Yes, and so there's no question that is a manifestation that he has not reformed and is still really flying high on that kind of negativity that is within the solar plexus of the society. I really don't see how it is that it could ever be appropriate for a political leader and a political party to be endorsing that simply in my mind to gain political mileage.
We have with us Germaine Barrett. He's the Executive Director of Jamaican Association for Debating and Empowerment. That's JADE Limited. Mr. Barrett, even going past this matter of cartel, you noticed during the annual conference, the PNP backed away somewhat from the attacks in terms of the Prime Minister's integrity and his statutory declarations. They got in a few jabs on the matter, but almost entirely those messages were absent from the annual conference. Do you believe the People's National Party is now seeing this as a potential losing hand to continue down that road?
I think it would be foolhardy of them to have trumpeted the narrative surrounding the Prime Minister's uncertified financials, because evidences or strong indications are reported by your media host that, there's nothing to see here really. And so the PNP still wanting to push a narrative about, corruption and malfeasance and so forth, and plaster the government as being that kind of a malign actor, drew for the next best thing, which is something that is unresolved, the matter of the 8 politicians who are being investigated, but we still don't know who they are. The illicit 8, actually. And so I think it was fairly witty and smart of the leader of the opposition, the way he coined it, talking about, this is increasing, by the end of this little message we might find that we're at 12 and so forth. I mean, pandering to the masses, an exciting person. But I think behind all of that kind of, speech making is the concern that, we do really need to adjust and amend the legislation governing the Integrity Commission such that there can be greater transparency in what the Integrity Commission is doing and a better appreciation that the Integrity Commission is doing the people's business and has an obligation to report in a fairly efficient manner to the people of the country. So I certainly support the leader of the opposition stance that there needs to be an amendment whereby reports from the special reports specifically from the Integrity Commission are tabled, and not just tabled to the Parliament, but broadcast to the people so that the people can aid in holding their own politicians accountable for the administration of their own business.
But you should note, Mr. Barrett, though, is that what Mr. Golding is putting forward is not that the report be tabled. It's that within 24 hours of them receiving the Parliament, it simply be published. Don't you find that kind of disconcerting? I mean, that has never been the practice for any statutory body.
Well, the truth is it sells, that message sells well with the people who I think are generally just not pleased with the level of hiddenness and secrecy governing how it is that the Integrity Commission has been conducting its affairs. Much of that kind of secrecy and hiddenness results from the fact that it is constrained by its own gag order. And so I think a large part of what we ought to be considering is the extent to which it is appropriate for us living in a liberal democracy, in an with the principles of open government, assuming we expose those, that if it is that the people are not being informed efficiently about issues that relate to their elected officials, to what extent are we treating the people with the kind of respect and regard that they ought to be treated with? Invariably, these reports are going to come out. So why not do it sooner rather than later? I'm not sure I'm understanding. And yes, the conventions exist elsewhere where reports are withheld until the Parliament has its way with it. Maybe all reports should be posted expeditiously to the website so that the people can have as quick an assessment of these reports as necessary. I don't see what the issue is, rather.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barrett, for the perspective. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good. 7 minutes going up to 6 o'clock. We're going to switch gears now to a story coming out of St. Elizabeth. Nationwide News understands that the man whose 7-year-old son was found with a gun at his school in the parish has been released from custody. This after the boy changed his story that the weapon belonged to his father. And then the story is taking a very ominous turn this afternoon. It's understood that death threats have been made against teachers at the child's school. It's a very rural primary school in St. Elizabeth, a small school, and we're not going to name the school because of the sensitivity. But what we're learning is rather disturbing. Shalois Michael tells us more.
When the weapon was discovered last Thursday, the boy told the police he found it among his father's belongings. The father was taken into custody that same day. The child was initially released into the custody of his relatives. It's understood when police returned the following day to get the child's formal statement, he did not indicate that the gun belonged to his father. This led to the release of the father on Monday after spending 4 days behind bars. It's also understood the father was previously arrested for having an illegal firearm. The child and his siblings were, however, placed in the care of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. Since then, the matter has reportedly taken an ominous turn. It's understood the teachers at the boys' school are now being threatened over their handling of the situation. They're being accused of reporting the matter to the police instead of alerting the child's family. Nationwide News understands that security personnel have been escorting the teachers to school. Head of the St. Elizabeth Police, Superintendent Coleridge Minto, says the police are seeking to ascertain the source of the threats.
We are now treating with the matter of threats being made against persons from the school. And so that has come to our attention over the last 2 days, and we are investigating the source of the threats. We want to appeal to persons in the area to refrain from interfering with any form of witness or any person connected to this investigation.
Superintendent Minto says the police have increased their presence at the school.
Since this incident, we have been in that particular school. We have had at least one major meeting with the school administrators as well as persons from the Ministry of Education, and there are certain decisions that are being treated with from the school level. We continue to provide support in terms of security, in terms of having our school resource officers deployed, and we will continue that support in our schools across the parish.
Shalois Michael for Nationwide News.
Thank you, Shaloy. And Siobhan, clearly we have a story here that we've got to watch, because what we understand, it's a small school, small staff complement, and the teachers are scared. Yes? They are scared to the point where the police now have to be offering them some escort and protection to get to and from school.
Certainly there are still so many questions that are raised based on how this has been handled, from the incident case of the police conducting the interview and then returning the child to the family and then coming back later to further interrogate the child. I mean, I don't understand on what circumstance that would happen if inevitably the child was then taken away by the Child Care and Protection Services anyway. Mm-hmm. Should not the CPFSA intervened at the point of the initial interview to say that this child is in need of care and protection?
Well, I don't know if they should have been called in before the interview, yeah, because we don't know the circumstances, yeah. But certainly, how soon thereafter were they called in?
Because, as this is explained, it would seem to the obvious eye that you would return the child to the environment under which the gun was found. Then you would almost automatically expect that some pressure would be put on the child to adjust his story.
He would have been tutored, to put it mildly, to change his story. Yeah, as he has now, change his story. Yeah, boy. We just continue to surprise ourselves, eh? When you think we can't get any more.
Unfortunately.
A 7-year-old boy.
With a semi-automatic, not even semi-automatic, a machine pistol. I remember the day when I was at Woolmer's when they found a gun in a child's handbag, and that was the highlight of the year, and that child was suspended, and it was quite the commotion.
Yeah.
But no, this seems to be happening almost regularly.
Yeah. That's how we're going to leave it for the cover story this afternoon.